What's going on, guys? Happy Monday to everybody. And let me know if there's any lag, because I'm using the software is not working today, so we're doing a little bit different. Have CJ log in over there and check it out, but we'll give you guys a couple of seconds here to join us before we get started. How's that look? Does it look laggy?
No move.
So today we're talking about things that I wish I knew before I went to prison, and things that you guys can learn and benefit from. So if you guys are hearing any lag, let me know and we'll just stop it, and I'll restart this tomorrow for you guys. Hey Cheryl, how you doing? You guys seeing lag over there, Cheryl? Anybody want to respond? If you guys are hearing me, let me know if there's any lag on this, where we had an issue with our software today, so I had to use a different program to stream. So until I hear from you guys, no lag from Jenny. Cheryl Camp says no lag. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go with this. Welcome, guys. Turn that off. Sorry, we had it running in the background. I couldn't hear. So everybody else says it's okay. CJ says he sees lag on his side. So hopefully you guys will let me know. So things that if you're getting ready to potentially going into federal prison, there's a lot that you probably wish you had known. And I know when I was in federal prison, there's a lot of things that I wish I had known. So I thought, why not talk about top 3 things that I felt were important to me prior to going into federal prison. And the first one, hey, Daniel, how you doing? The first one that I really noticed that was a big issue for me was I wish I had the ability to control my fear and anxiety of the unknown thought process of going into federal prison, obviously prior to going. And there's no real way to completely be able to do that until you go into the prison system, until you see it for yourself. But there are things that you can do to reduce fear, reduce anxiety. And a lot of that comes with a lot of what you guys are doing right now. A lot of you that are doing research on the internet, a lot of you are, watching videos like mine. Maybe you're watching videos of other prison consultants. And these are things that you absolutely can do to reduce the fear and anxiety of the unknown. Because when you have that fear and anxiety of what's next, sometimes it will prevent you from doing anything at all. You don't move forward. You're not working on bettering your own situation. You're putting all your faith in possibly into your attorney. And maybe some of you don't even have an attorney yet. Maybe some of you just received like a target letter, or you got word that you may be under investigation and you don't know what to do. And because the idea of going to prison, that's probably, if you really broke it down and you asked people what are like one of the biggest things you're afraid of in life, next to dying, losing a child, going to prison is probably one of those things that is definitely up there. Going to prison, I know for me, prior to prison, it was always like a fear of mine. I always thought, man, I hope I never have to go to federal prison. And there was always like this really underlining fear of it. And I felt like almost it was something that I was going to manifest. And I ended up going to prison. So if you're finding yourself in a situation to where you're getting stuck in the fear and anxiety and dwelling on what's unknown, that really will stop you from moving forward. So if you're learning anything from these videos, reading other information on the internet, of any of the research you're doing, you should have learned by now that there's nothing you can do to stop what's going to happen. But everything you do from this point forward is either going to make your situation better, it's going to keep it stagnant and not move at all, or in some cases, making additional poor decisions can actually make everything a lot worse than what it might already be. Michael, how you doing? Hey, Dan, I don't know if you remember me. I was tuning in before. I'm out of the halfway house now. Michael James, I remember you. Welcome back, my man. How was your journey? We would love to hear from it. If you want to shoot us an email or a text, the information is not posted on the screen because we're using a different software, but CJ will post our email and phone number where you can reach us throughout the screen. But of course, you can always email me at rdapdan@gmail.com. You can always send me a text, 509-434-4695. Make sure you come check us out on the internet, rdapdan.com. There you will find information like our free prison sentencing tool, which there's another prison consultant out there that uses the same tool, and they're charging $200 to $300 for that sentencing tool. So make sure you come check that out. It's on our website under resources. It's completely free. All you need to do is become a member, which is absolutely free to become a member of our website. In doing so, we'll give you access to free resources. So number one, the one thing, and these are known specific order, guys. These are, each person might look at it a little bit differently. But the number one thing that I really wish that I had dealt with better was the fear and anxiety of going to prison. And I wish that I had done some more research on what prison was going to actually be like. Because you guys have heard me say it a million times, if you're a first-time nonviolent offender and you're going into the prison system, chances are you're going to be going to a camp or a low security, which really is not too serious unless maybe you have like a sex offense charge or something like that. In that situation, of course, there's other dynamics that are at play. But for those of you that do not have that are first-time nonviolent offenders, prison is not going to be as bad as you think. Where you're at right now in your mind with preparing for prison, hopefully you're preparing, that is where the real anxiety and fear lies, is because as human beings, we have a control factor where we like to know what's going on and we like to be in control. And when there's an unknown amount of time ahead of you, are you going to prison? Are you getting probation? If you are going to prison, how long are you going for? What are the people going to be like? What are the guards going to be like? Am I going to be safe? You've got all these questions that run through your mind a million miles an hour. And especially when you're trying to lay down at night, you're trying to relax, it's really almost impossible. So if you can adjust and you can understand that it's not going to be the end of the world, and as hard as that may sound, be here right now, I assure you it will go by, but you have to do your research and you have to start doing and making change in your life to increase the influence of what might happen later on. So that's number one. Number two, I think would probably be, in my situation, would be attorney expectation and attorney accountability. You know, what my expectations were for my attorney at the time of hiring my attorney were probably like a lot of yours. My situation is not that different from a lot of you guys. A lot of you have federally appointed attorneys, or a lot of you started off with a federally appointed attorney and then graduated into hiring an attorney. My situation, I originally had a federally appointed attorney. I was under, there had been no indictment yet. So prior to being indicted, I was under investigation. I was offered a pre-indictment plea to where I could plea out to information without actually getting indicted. And I did this through the advice of my federal appointed attorney, which was my free attorney, Dennis O'Brien, who I still to this day think very highly of. However, when I was told that I was facing an actual possible prison sentence, when I was possibly going to accept the original plea offer prior to being indicted, I came to the conclusion in my mind that the only reason I was looking at prison time was because I didn't pay for an attorney, because I had an appointed attorney. So I did like anybody with that thought process would do, is figure out what I need to do to go hire an attorney, which I ended up doing. Hiring a federal attorney, thinking that this may increase my chances for a better outcome than what I had with the federal appointed attorney. The problem was I really didn't know what questions to ask in order to be able to hold the attorney accountable. My expectations of the attorney were that he was going to come in and basically fix everything. You know, you've heard me say it before, ride in on a giant white horse, you know, go kick the shit out of the federal government and somehow figure out a way to get me out from underneath all of this. And that's just not the reality. If I had educated myself more, or had an outlet to go to that could explain to me how common this was to really feel like I was going down this road alone, and that halfway through, I start realizing I'm not getting the questions answered that I have from my attorney. There were several times where I would have these wandering thoughts or these wandering questions about so many different things at any given time. And when I would actually either get on the phone with the attorney or sit in my attorney's office, I would find myself ending the phone call or walking out of the office, realizing that I still had a lot of those same questions, that I still didn't have any more closure than I had prior to going in. And a lot of that, I think, because the questions that I really had, the attorney just wasn't in a position to answer them. How much time was I actually going to serve? You know, what did I actually need to do to prepare to go to prison? What were some things that I could do to better my situation? And because I didn't have an idea of what that should look like, I really didn't know what I was looking for from my attorney. It was such uncharted territory for me that, and for most of you that are going through this for the first time, that nothing that came out of my attorney's mouth was really comforting or released any anxiety. It was all, if anything, created more fear and more anxiety, because the conversations were so short with my legal counsel most of the time that I felt I wasn't getting the service that I thought I was going to get. And we see this with, no matter if you have an appointed attorney, a average priced attorney, or a high priced attorney, we see this happening all of the time. And that's one of the reasons why we get so many phone calls from people, because they think they're in a situation by themselves where it's just their attorney that's acting like this. And they feel like if they were to go get a different attorney, they might have a better outcome. Now, I'm not here to bash on the attorneys, but I don't think attorneys realize how important this is to somebody like you and I when we're going through it. I think they're so deep into everything else going on. They've got so many cases going on. And in the federal system, you know, we know almost every case is going to end in some sort of a plea agreement. So their job is to get the plea, tell you about the plea. Hopefully you're going to accept the plea, which most of us do, sign the plea, and then the attorney, in a lot of aspects of what they're supposed to do, they're done. They know they're going to be there for you the day of sentencing. They're going to stand up. They're going to ask the judge for, you know, a lie to self-surrender, maybe make a recommendation, ask for some programs. They might even ask for a downward departure or possibly probation. But we don't really feel there was a lot of preparation into going into that. You get there and you feel like something's missing. There's this missing ingredient, and I'm not sure what it was. And it's because you guys are in a situation where you're going through something that you've never been through. That's where somebody with the knowledge that we have and the services that we offer, we can really fill those gaps to where the services that you're not getting that absolutely can influence a potential outcome. That's where something along the lines of a prison consultant can really come in, as long as you're hiring somebody that's going to put in the work, put in the effort, build you a roadmap to success, give you the time and effort that you need, understanding where you've been. I'm not saying somebody has to have gone to prison to help you. I'm sure there's people out there that would make amazing prison consultants without ever spending a day in prison. Unfortunately, the fact that somebody goes to prison gives almost instant credibility, which people can use good or bad. You know, you trust somebody because they went to prison. Next thing you know, they're using that to exploit you and take advantage of you, charge you ridiculous fees. So you really have to do your homework and your due diligence. That's why there's so many 2255s filed for ineffective counsel. After you get sentenced, you get to prison, you find out all the things that you should have done that your attorney never really spoke to you about. Now you're pissed off and you want to go file a 2255 to try to get things looked at again. Almost everybody files a 2255. If you look at the abundance of 2255s that are filed and how many of them actually even really get looked at, most of them are denied instantly. And there's attorneys out there that really exploit on that service. They offer people the ability to help them. They'll help you file the 2255 at pretty exorbitant fees. I would say anywhere from $3,000 up to $10,000. They'll help you prepare your 2255 motion. But what they don't tell you is there's probably less than a 5% chance that it's going to do you any good. I think if they gave you the real outlook on that and the real expectation that, hey, you're probably pissing your money away, most people probably would not go through the 2255, because what it comes down to is you're pissed off at your attorney for not doing a better job. But really what it comes down to is you weren't working on your own situation at all. and you put all of your trust and all of your faith in your attorney, and now that things didn't go your way, you feel like the attorney should have done a better job. Not saying they should have or they should not have, but it's your job to hold them accountable. And the only way you can do that is by researching and educating yourself on what the attorney could and should be doing differently from what they are or not doing now. That brings me to the next step. What you choose to do with your time on pretrial services. I would say that is, or on while you're under investigation at all, whether you're on pretrial services or you've been under investigation, you're just a target, maybe you haven't been indicted yet, and you know it's coming at some point. What you do with your day-to-day, that is probably the number 3 thing that I wish I had focused on a lot more. I really feel like that if I had known what I know now, would I have not gone to prison? I don't think it would have stopped me from going to prison, but I do think I could have created a lot of influence that would have potentially reduced the sentence that I was looking at. I am a firm believer that if we knew what we knew right now, that Shelley probably would not have gone to prison. She was given a very short sentence as it was of 13 months, and she was the low man on the totem pole where everybody else was charged with conspiracy. She was charged with misprison of a felony. If you don't know what it is, look it up. Are there any questions you got in the room, Ches? I already did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
Let's see. Noxter had a question there. We got Kathy in the house. Was it Noxter with the question? Somebody asked, can you do, Alex Rodriguez wants to know if you can do RDAP twice. No, you cannot do RDAP twice. Whether you go to prison now, you do RDAP, you get out, you get re-indicted at a later date, you go back to prison for something else. You can't take RDAP twice. Now, if you don't complete it and you get kicked out of the program or you quit, then yes, you can go back into the program. But if you've successfully completed the program and received sentence reduction, you cannot take the program twice. I know that's a bummer, but hopefully shouldn't need it twice. If you use the tools that you applied from going to RDAP the first time, hopefully you'll be able to identify these roadblocks and mistakes so you don't allow your mind to go into that situation to begin with. I see one thumbs up in the room with a bunch of people in here. Let me get a thumbs up from you guys. Show some love. Show that this content is being appreciated because we do this for you guys. What you do with your time on pretrial is so important. And let me explain why. So picture like everybody imagines going into court, especially when you've never been in trouble before. You imagine the judge is going to see that I'm not a bad person. The prosecutor is going to see that I'm not a bad person. They're going to see my awesome friends and family. They're going to read these letters from my mother, my father. They're going to read these letters from my kids, and they're going to see that I should not be going to prison because I'm not a bad person. The mindset that a lot of us get stuck in is that we're special or that we're different or I'm not a criminal. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. For a lot of us, that's the mindset that we have when we're getting ready to go into a court situation or dealing with this. I remember all of my friends telling me, Dan, you're not going to go to prison. The judge is going to see you're a normal guy, that you made a mistake, and that you've been out on pretrial since 2011. You've been doing everything you're supposed to do. You didn't have any dirty UAs. You've maintained a job. Probation loves you. You've done everything you're supposed to do. They're going to realize this is just a screw up, and somehow this is all going to fix itself because in the perfect world, the universe doesn't allow bad shit to happen to good people. That's kind of the mindset that a lot of us, I wouldn't say that we necessarily believe, but it's easy to gravitate towards that because it is a comforting thought. It's a comforting thought to go that the powers that be, whatever they may be, whether it's your religion is God or you just believe in the universe, you put out good, you get back good, you believe that somehow this is all going to go away. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The reality is for most of you that are under investigation or federal indictment, if your attorney is telling you that prison is a possibility, it's almost a guarantee that a lot of you will go to prison. And once you truly accept that fact and you realize that there's nothing you're going to do that is going to really stop it from happening, but once you realize there are things you can do that can influence the outcome to allow you to appear different than the average person. We call this, I was talking to somebody about this while I was in Vegas. I was in Vegas last week and I was still taking calls the entire time. in between the blackjack table and the blackjack tables, I was on the phone. One of the questions that I was really talking to somebody about was faceless people. When you go into the court system, you are faceless. The average person that stands in front of the judge is faceless. And what do I mean by that is the judge no longer sees people. He no longer sees faces. He reads your letter. He reads everybody else's letter. And he's been doing this for years and years and years. It's just a conveyor belt of people coming in and going out the other side. And everybody looks exactly the same. There's no difference in how you appear 99% of the time. You've got personal narratives that talk about the same stuff that they read in everybody else's personal narrative. And if you wonder what I'm talking about, just read your personal narrative. If you've already written a personal narrative, I suggest you to read it right now. And a free service that we offer is we review your letters absolutely for free to give you feedback. So if you have a personal narrative that you haven't turned in yet, if you have character reference letters that you haven't turned in yet, we will 100% review them for free and give you some honest feedback that you can use, or you can say, screw you, I don't like what you're telling me right now. But chances are, if you've done a personal narrative and you're not using somebody to help you with this, chances are your personal narrative is not very well. And when I say not very well, I don't necessarily mean that it's spelled wrong or it's got bad grammar. I'm talking about the story, the picture that you're painting is probably all wrong, because what it's doing is it's probably explaining that you're a good person. It's probably explaining that you do things within your community. It's probably explaining how important your children are to you and how this is going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt you. Your friends and family are probably writing letters about how you're a stellar, you're so active in the community. You're that person that everybody goes to when they need advice. You're not the type of person that anybody has a bad thing to say about. Those are pretty typical letters, run of the mill. There might be a few things in there. What the letters typically don't focus on is how you've destroyed everybody's life around you. How your best friend now has to imagine what it's like watching you go to prison. How hard this is for your kids watching the mistakes that you made have affected your child's life because you decided to hurt your kids. You know, if I asked most of you, would you ever do anything to hurt your children? First thing anybody of you are ever going to say is no, of course not. Well, the shitty decisions you made that allowed you to get yourself into this situation to begin with, this is why you're going to prison. You're not going to prison because you're a bad person. You're not necessarily going to prison because you had bad intentions. Intentions don't mean shit. Doesn't matter that if you had bad or good intentions. Now, clearly, if you're in and out of jail your entire life and you've never learned from your mistakes, then yes, right now may be a little more severe for you than a first-time offender. But if you're a first-time offender, you've got to get out of the mindset of being a victim. And if you tell me right now, well, I'm not in that mindset, I probably won't believe you until I have a conversation with you. Almost everybody I talk to is a victim. Yes, they did what they did, but yet they'll say things like, but so-and-so did the same thing and they didn't go to prison, or so-and-so did the same thing and they received probation. Or I read horror stories all the time about people that did way worse things than this and they're looking at less time than me. Who cares? Quit focusing on everything else about how somebody else got off or somebody else didn't get caught. Fact is you got caught. Your hand was in the cookie jar, whether it was a white collar crime, a financial crime, a drug crime, oops, I wasn't paying attention crime. My boss was doing this and I was signing the checks and I wasn't paying attention. There is no excuse for what you did unless you're 100% innocent and they've got the wrong person, which does it happen? Sure. Does it happen all the time? Does it normally happen in the federal system with first-time nonviolent offenders? Probably not. So once you swallow that, and a lot of you have taken a plea, most of you are going to take a plea. Once you take that plea, you're admitting it. You're saying, I did what you said I did in order to get a possibly reduced sentence and not go to trial and get hammered on the face. I get it. You take a plea because it's the lesser of two evils. However, you agreed to take the plea. So once you take that plea, it's time to switch your mind into full accountability and what you can do to own up to this. We don't want to see letters that from friends and family, which we see all the time, that, you know, well, Dan's a good guy and he didn't really know what was going on. If he had known, he wouldn't have done it. That's not doing me any favors. That's telling the judge that I'm still trying to convince somebody that I shouldn't be going to prison after I took a plea. This is why we focus so much on personal narrative and character reference writing. You know, Jenny Good is amazing with these letters, and it's not amazing because we have a template or we make up stories. We have the ability, if you hire us early enough on, we have the ability to get to know you, to give you some samples as a direction for you to get started in. Then you start crafting your own letter, your own personal narrative, and you might get stuck. You might call me up and go, Dan, I just don't know what to write. And I'll tell you, just start writing. Once you get in the momentum of writing, and sometimes you might get off on the beaten path, and that's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to give you critical criticism on your letters, because the judge is either going to go bullshit and toss it aside, or the judge is going to go, this looks like every other letter, or the possibility the judge might read your letter and go, this stands out. And why does it stand out? Because you are saying all the things about yourself that the government is saying. You're not blaming on anybody else. You're not saying how naive you were and you didn't know what was going on. Can you get away with a naive defense and taking a plea? Okay, maybe if you're, in your late 60s, 70, 80 years old, there's some naiveness there. Somebody was taking advantage of we have an elderly client right now that's in her 70s, and I feel horrible for her, the situation she's in. I don't think she should go to prison, and hopefully with the work that we're doing for her, she won't go to prison. We'll keep you updated on that. But for most of you, you had an idea what was going on. Almost every one of you that I talked to, yeah, you're pissed. Yeah, you're mad. Yeah, you think it's not fair. But when it gets down to the root of it, you kind of had an idea that you were involved in something stupid. You allowed yourself to make some stupid decisions, whether it was to pay your bills, whether it was to feed your greed, whether it was to compare to the neighbors, and you just wanted to be the man. We got a client right now that he didn't care about the money. He liked the power that it gave him. He liked being the person that people came to, that people respected. And sometimes you got to find a way to humble yourself. And when you're going to deal with us, when you're going to deal with the way we work with you and what we expect from you, we're going to expect you to be able to hear what we got to say. If you're going to get pissed off and you don't want to hear it, then, call me up and I'll give you a refund, because we can't help you if you want to paint a picture of, you're a saint. Because if you're facing federal prison right now, you're probably not a saint. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that you've got some moving parts that are not quite unfocused and doing what they should be doing. You've allowed an irrational thought to spread its wings and be stuck in your mind so long that these irrational thoughts start to become rational to you. You actually start to rationalize why you did what you did. Well, I did this because if I didn't, I was going to lose my house. My company was going to go down if I didn't do this. That's not a reason. That's an excuse to do something for your own self-interest. That comes into hurting your family and hurting your children. Some of you have indicted wives or indicted husbands, or you've got friends and family that are indicted on your case because of thought processes and thinking it's not that big of a deal. Everybody does it. A little seemingly unimportant decision can have massive consequences if you allow it to spread. So now we're at a point where you let it spread too long. Does that mean you can't come back from this? Does that mean you're lost forever? I don't think so. Some of you may never come back because some of you are in denial and you still think you've done absolutely nothing wrong, but yet you're taking a plea. And that's something that you have to deal with. So working on personal narratives and character reference letters is part of it. The mindset coaching, these are some of the things that really weren't even available when I was going to prison, or at least I didn't know where to go. And it definitely wasn't in a one-stop shop. Were there life coaches out there? Sure. Were there life coaches that had experience and ability and the understanding of what the prison system was like and what I could have done differently to work on building a process for myself that was going to mitigate my time with sentencing and show the judge that I've actually learned and I'm giving an explanation through actions and not just words. The life coaching and the mind coaching that we do with Jenny, it's all to get you on a train of thought to not just take accountability for what you did and not just focus on what you need to do when you get into prison, but how to deal with your day-to-day right now with mind-solving techniques to allow you to understand that you need to understand things that you don't know. You're in a situation where maybe you think you have it figured out. Maybe you think you're going to be able to manipulate the situation. Maybe you think you can throw a ton of money at this and make it go away. But the one thing that a lot of people aren't willing to do is dig deep and bring up the real root of the problem, which is normally you. It's usually your issues. It's your anger. It's your inability to want to progress and learn. So when you allow us in, and this is a great time to do it, because a lot of us that go through this, we're at a very vulnerable state in our life. And being vulnerable is not a bad thing. That means giving up control. That means not being the driver. That means listening to advice from somebody else and not just listening to the advice that you like. Sometimes it means hearing what you do not want to hear. Because if you're hearing stuff from people that you don't want to hear and it's bothering you, maybe it's true. So the mindset coaching is set to give you tactics, to give you techniques, to start creating new habits. And these new habits, once they start forming and they start taking root to you, this is what's going to allow you to now go into the next step of what's going to allow you to create your mentor group. That's going to allow you to get involved in the community. That's going to do things different. You know, community service, everybody thinks of community service, you know, going to the soup kitchen, going to church, cleaning up garbage, going to the Salvation Army and donating your time. Is that stuff bad? No. But is that stuff unique and special? No. So again, if the whole concept is to remove the facelessness where the judge sees you with no face, we're trying to put a face on you. We're trying to put a brand on you. We're trying to make you stick out like a sore thumb. This is done through many different techniques, and it's not just any one thing that's going to make this difference. Preparing for your PSR, your pre-sentence review, your pre-sentence interview, if this is being done correctly, the influence to the judge starts early. Starts early with your probation officer while you're on pretrial. You're on pretrial, and again, your pretrial probation officer is used to seeing a variety of people that are out there running the streets doing drugs, that they know they got to watch 24/7. They know that they got the person that might be like you. That's a no-brainer, a person they're not going to have to really monitor or babysit, and you're just staying out of the way. You're not creating any issues for them, so they leave you alone. That's great. You're not getting any additional trouble, but guess what? You're not going to get a gold star or a fucking cookie for doing what is required of you. While you're on pretrial supervision, you're required to stay out of trouble. You're required to not use drugs. You're required to not break any additional laws. So they're not shocked when you do these things. They're not shocked when you follow suit. It's not creating this going, oh my God, this person's such a great person. This is different than anybody else we have. They have a ton of people on their caseload just like you that don't get in trouble, that are first-time nonviolent offenders. What they don't have is a bunch of people on their caseload that are creating a mentor network where you're emailing your probation officer once a week without him asking, just giving him an update to what goals you're working on for this week. And then at the end of the week, giving your probation officer an additional email saying, these are the goals that I hit. These are the ones that I did not hit. And these are the reasons why. Holding yourself accountable, saying, I made an excuse not to do this. Now, what's your probation officer going to do with this? He might call you up and go, Dan, why are you sending me this? You don't need to send this to me. I know you're just part of my mentor network. Feel free to delete it at any time. But your email's on there. Unless your probation officer says, stop sending it to me. He may never once tell you, good job. That's okay. We're not looking for a pat on the back or a high five. What we're looking for is later on when the judge starts asking for feedback, how has Dan been on supervised release? He's going to say one of three things. One, well, he's been a complete idiot and he's been in trouble every day. He's pissed dirty 3 times. He wasn't at his house when he was supposed to be there. Or he's going to say, option 2 is Dan was fine. He stayed out of trouble. No issues. Okay. You stayed out of trouble. You did what was expected of you. You didn't raise the bar. You just stayed right in that safe zone. No worse, no better, just down the middle. Okay, that's not horrible, right? That's better than option 1. Option 3, he was on top of things. Every week, out of nowhere, he would send me this accountability report, letting me know, letting me know what goals he was working on and what goals he hit. And what was really interesting is he would sometimes tell me he was struggling with things, and this is why he was struggling. And I don't know why he was sending it to me, but I really feel like he was trying. Okay, that sounds better than the first 2. Is that by itself going to make a difference? Probably not, or it could. Now you've got your PSR interview. You pled guilty. You went in front of the judge. You said, I did it. You're going to go meet with a different probation officer that's going to conduct your PSR. You're going to fill out a bunch of financial paperwork. You're going to fill out a bunch of psychological paperwork. And you're going to give this to your probation officer. Most of the time when we read these packets that clients fill out, it's very bare minimum. It's and I'd have to show you to explain it, but there's not a whole lot of effort put into it. So then the probation officer during this interview will ask you some questions. You'll answer the questions. He'll take his notes. He'll then leave the interview an hour, hour and a half in. You guys separate. You go amongst the rest of your day. He now has to conduct and create the pre-sentence report. This could take a couple of weeks to a month to create this report. The information he's using to create this report is the information you gave him that he made notes on. How detailed is that? Probably not that detailed. The average probation officer has got a lot of different PSRs that they're creating, which means it's not like they have a book on you or page after page. So they're gathering this information based on the quick information you provided to them. So what can be done to influence that outcome? Well, if you're going into this PSR interview and you're actually prepared and you've followed any type of guidance and a roadmap and you understand what has worked for other people, you're going to go in there with a packet that is going to blow this probation officer out of his seat. Like literally you will get a compliment going, I wish everybody came in my office like this. And what's so different about you versus the other people? Well, if you are actually prepared, you're going to have a packet that is probably going to be twice as thick to what this probation officer is used to seeing. You're going to have your personal narrative already finished, completed. It's going to be reviewed. It's going to be updated. You're going to have a personal narrative that is going to explain everything about you in an accountability fashion, showing your true remorse and explaining who you are, why you did what you did, how you allow this criminal thinking process to take over without ever making an excuse or blaming it on something like drugs, alcohol, blaming it on a co-conspirator. It's going to be fully accountable. And you're going to present this to the probation officer to assist him while creating his pre-sentence report. And he will tell you, or she will tell you, that if everybody did this, it would make our job so much easier. And don't you think if you're making their job easier and you're supplying them with a better quality version of what they're used to seeing, that's going to be illustrated in the report that they generate? Now they're making that recommendation to the judge as to what type of sentence should be imposed. Again, this is one more thing going into your favor to give yourself a face the day you're standing in court in front of that judge. All these little moving parts that your attorney's not talking to you about right now actually has a giant play in the longevity of what the outcome is. No one thing is going to give you any type of a flat out guarantee. Of course, everybody wants to take RDAP. Everybody wants to get involved with community service. I hear people say, if I start doing community service, don't you think the judge is just going to think that I'm doing it to get a shorter sentence? Now you're assuming, and you're allowing a self-defeating thought to get in your way from taking action. So it stops you from progressing because you're like, well, what if the judge thinks that I'm just wasting his time and I'm just doing this to look better? Isn't he going to see right through this? No, because what happens is if you start this early enough, I don't care what your intentions are. Your intentions weren't to go to prison and you're going to prison, right? So if your intentions are to do community service to get a shorter sentence, guess what will probably happen? Your reason and your intentions will start to change. If you're doing the right type of community service, and that's why there's no cookie cutter platform to this. People will say, well, you're going to send me this review on what you've done for other people. It's like, look, everything we create, every roadmap that we create for somebody is uniquely different because not everybody's the same. So if we have you doing very specific community service and you're doing it repeatedly, almost everybody, including the person we're going to be interviewing tomorrow, Jamison Graybill, will tell you, I started doing community service because I thought it would look good. I even got to a point in my situation where I wanted to buy community service hours because I didn't want to put in the work. And you see how that sounds good. You're like, well, fuck, that sounds like a great idea. Let me go buy the hours. Granted, that sounds like a good immediate fix to getting, 100 hours, 200 hours. If I told you, hey, I want to see 300 hours of community service before you get sentenced to influence a possible outcome, you would think that's a lot of hours. Where am I going to find the time to do this? Well, don't think about 300 hours. Think about where can I do my first hour? How can I get through my first week? If you start doing this, what will happen is over the course of time, your reason for doing it will start to change. You'll start seeing the impact that you're making in your community. You'll start seeing the children and their families that are responding to your story and the level of humiliation you're practicing, because you're going to be telling them about what you did in your life that ultimately is probably going to lead you to prison, and what you could have done different, and how you were taught better, and how you didn't come from a family of in and out of people that were in and out of prison their entire life. A lot of us that are going into the prison system right now, and a lot of you that are watching this, you may not know anybody that's ever been arrested. You may not know anybody that's going to prison, and you're really embarrassed, and you don't want anybody to know about this. You're trying to bury it. You're trying to bury it so deep, hoping it never gets exposed, hoping the media doesn't report on it. And, you know, nobody wants to be reported on. Nobody wants to be shown in a bad light. But think about how frustrating it is for you right now to find resources on everything you have questions about. What's prison really like? What do I need to do to reduce my sentence? There's not an abundance of information out there. And the reason why is because everybody has that same mindset that you're thinking of right now, that I'm embarrassed. I don't want anybody to know about it. The problem is us. We're so concerned. And what happens is we make it so much worse on ourselves than it really is. When you actually out and talk about what it is that you did to complete strangers and share your story, and you're not ashamed of what you did, in the sense of you wish you didn't do it, but since you did it, why not try to go out and affect somebody else's life with it? Why not try to go out and say, hey, don't do what I did, because I went to school just like you. I thought this would never happen to me. And the reason why it did was in 2011, I made my first bad decision. In 2012, I made my second bad decision. And before I knew it, I was making a series of bad patterns in my life. And it became so normal that I thought, this will never end. I'm never going to get in trouble for this. This isn't a real crime. There's a million justifications that go into a thought pattern that we allow ourselves. That's why this can be extremely hard for a white-collar criminal. They do not want to take advice. They don't want to admit that they did anything wrong. And they don't want to take advice from somebody that doesn't look and sound like them. And I hate to pick on them, but it's the truth. So if you're watching this and that's pissing you off, take that and really analyze that and realize what you can be doing different. There's prison consultants out there that will charge $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, and they'll throw out some flashy names. They'll tell you who their partners are, which don't mean shit. There's a prison consultant out there, has a partner, poster boy partner, doesn't really have much to do with the situation, much to do with the business, but they throw his name around because it sounds great and it justifies in their mind why they're going to charge you $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. You need to take charge right now and do what's best for your situation. And what's best for your situation 99% of the time is to realize that you don't have it all figured out, and that your attorney, to an extent, is not completely equipped to handle some of the situations that you're in. You spent anywhere from 20 grand to a couple $100,000 on your legal attorney, or you have a federally appointed attorney. A prison consultant alongside of just an average attorney really can create a rock star type of an environment. Some of the additional things that we're able to do for people that a lot of other companies don't do is we also, if you're on supervised release and you're looking to get early termination off of supervised release, I showed you guys, I did it for myself. We've done it for several other clients now. It is some services that we offer directly. So for some of you guys that are watching this right now that are on supervised release, you've been released from prison already, and you've got 36 months or 48 months or 5 years, 6 years of supervised release, and you've served, at least a year of that, and you're interested in finding out if early termination may be a possibility for you. Again, this is one of the reasons why you want to call us. We've developed a system that outdoes any other prison consultant. And that's not just fluff or sales pitch. It's the reason why a lot of other prison consultants are really frustrated with what we do in this industry right now, because they don't believe we belong here. They look at it as they were a white-collar criminal. They went to white-collar prison. They had tons and tons of money. They've purchased the best legal defenses that are out there. And here comes Ardab Dan, fresh out of prison, doesn't have $2 to his name, starts making YouTube videos just to tell you guys what my situation was like. I identify the need for something like this because so many of you that are going through it do not have the ability to go spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a prison consultant. So my initial thought process when I started this was, can it be done for a better price without getting rid of any of the services or watering down any of the services? Can it be done for a better price and do the same service, if not better, that a high-end prison consultant may charge? And the reality is not only can we do it for a better price, but we're able to run circles around the competition. Now, do we have the best sales pitch? Do we have the flashiest website? Am I going to, tell you everything you need to hear on the phone and make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside? Maybe, maybe not. You might really like what I have to say, or you might go, no, doesn't sound flashy enough. Then okay. Or he's not charging enough, which means I'm probably not going to get a good enough service. You have to be able to judge for yourself. And the only way you're going to do that is do your homework, lower your guard, try not to have a predetermined opinion on somebody until you speak of them. Kathy Kaplan, who just became a team member of ours, who does the Wednesday night ladies night, she came from another prison consultant. And it's another prison consultant that's actually trying to sue me right now. And I was very hesitant in talking with her because I was afraid. I was like, hey, what if she's a spy? What if she's here to come pick our brain or who knows what? And then the reality set in and said, so what if she's a spy? We don't have anything to hide. There's no secret sauce. There's no secret recipe. There is, but nobody likes to hear it. If somebody wanted to go open a prison consulting company tomorrow and they said, Dan, we're going to give you $100,000. Help us open our own prison consulting company. What's the secret sauce? All right, but you got to give me the $100,000 first. And when they hear what the secret sauce is, they're not going to be happy with that, because that secret sauce is hard work, dedication, having a heart, caring about somebody's situation, being able to really understand what it means when you hear the word empathy. What does that mean? And what it doesn't mean is hearing an area code. These other prison consultants, and these are all facts. I've read letters. I've heard the stories. When somebody calls them, depending on where they're calling from, they'll already determine, oh, they live in this part of the state. They probably don't have any money. So move on to the next. And if you're dealing with a prison consultant that has that thought process, you're not dealing with somebody that's doing this for the right reasons. They might say it. They might say they're doing this for the right reasons. Anybody can talk shit. Anybody can talk a good game. But at the end of the day, can you make everybody happy? No. Do we have some clients that are not happy with our service? Of course. Is it because that we didn't try and we didn't put in the work and we didn't put in the effort? Absolutely not. Is it the client's fault? No. Sometimes there just wasn't a mutual benefit, or sometimes no matter what you do for somebody, the court's not going to move. The prison system's not going to move. The fact is if you're giving somebody real expectations as to what to do, at the end of the day, if I tell you exactly best case and worst case scenario, and what we're going to try to do is to put you into a better situation. If you don't allow that to take root, and you do not allow yourself to realize that, hey, I might put all of this effort in and I might still get the same exact shitty sentence that I would have gotten if I never hired anybody. That's the reality of hiring a prison consultant or an attorney. Nobody can fix anything 100%. So when somebody doesn't get into RDAP, or somebody doesn't get additional halfway house time, or somebody does get remanded at sentencing, these are variables. These are realities and options that you have to be willing to accept. I feel 100% that the service that we offer 90% of the time will put somebody in a better situation. It's the 10% that sucks and it's unfortunate and doesn't mean we work any harder or any less for people. No, but our job is not to wave a magic wand. Our job is to change your mindset through practice and through what works for somebody else, creating this environment that you're not used to, taking you out of your comfort zone. We have some clients that work harder than others, and those clients are usually the ones that reap the benefits. We have other clients that we can't get on the phone. CJ was just telling me today, there's a lady hired us. We have not been able to get her back on the phone to get any information from her. We call her family. There's situations that happen all of the time that are outside of our control. So you have to ask yourself, are you the type of person that's willing to put in the hard work and the effort? Or are you the type of person that thinks you're going to go pay a prison consultant and sit back and check in once every 2 weeks and find out what the progress is? It's not going to work for you. You can still hire us. We'll still take your money. I'll still cash your check. But if you don't put in the work, it may just be a donation that you just donated to Federal Prison Time Consulting. We don't want donations. We want results. We want feedback, and we want reviews. We love to read good reviews because good reviews means we're doing something different that somebody else isn't doing. We have any questions, CJ? So you keep telling me I didn't I didn't plug Pigeonly. So Pigeonly, I saw him post the comment. I thought you posted it in there.
I did, but
Pigeonly, cheap inmate phone calls. So if you need to save money on your inmate phone calls, check out Pigeonly. CJ posted a link in there. And if any of you are using Pigeonly, because Pigeonly is the company I used, let me know if you're using them, if you're having any issues with them, because if Pigeonly is not holding up their end of the bargain, it's not something that we would continue to plug because we're not getting paid from Pigeonly. They give a referral fee for anybody that goes to them, but so do any of them. Any of the inmate phone services will give out the same referral. So the reason we chose Pigeonly is because I used Pigeonly and it worked for me. So I wanted to give you guys a benefit and a tool from Pigeonly. It will save you money on your inmate calls. Will also save you money on sending pictures to inmates. So there's your Pigeonly plug. Is there any questions from anybody though that I missed? I see a lot of chatting going on in there.
Yeah, we had one, but it looks like Kathy answered it.
Well, what was it? So in case somebody else.
How often can you use the email at prison camp?
How often can you email? So somebody asked, how often can you email while in prison? It's pretty wide open, to be honest. I mean, you can't do it during count time. You can't do it after lights out, after like 10 p.m. You can't use it before 6 a.m. But pretty much from 6 to like 10 p.m. throughout the day, I would say comfortably there's probably 5 to 6 hours open a day, maybe more, that you can use email pretty regular. So you should have no problem emailing your friends and family. Same thing with the phone system. Anybody else have any questions? Kathy says, I emailed several times per day. The cost is 5 cents per minute to read or write an email. So yes, it's 5 cents a minute. So when you open an email, when you're in the email program in prison, you're being billed per minute, whether you're already typed it, writing it, reading it, you're getting billed. If you're a fast typer, I knew guys in there that couldn't type. They were so slow at typing that they would have somebody that I did it several times for people. They would write something out. They'd want me to go type it for them. And I'd sit at the computer. And there was even people that charged for this. It was like a prison hustle where they would type out your emails for you because they could type way faster and saving you money. So if you're a horrible typer, you can find somebody in there. Once you become friends with somebody, they can help you. They can type out your emails for you. So don't freak out about that.
My last question.
Which one?
From Daniel Kurz.
Dan, have you spoken to any recently released inmates? Have conditions improved at the camps over the past few years? Which conditions are you referring to, Dan? From everything that I've seen or heard from the time that I went into prison to now, for the most part, prison conditions in the average prison are nothing much has changed. The food's still not great. Some prisons have better food than others. Where I was at, food was pretty decent. Halfway house has been shortened in a lot of situations because of the budget cuts to the BOP, but we're starting to see that open back up with the First Step Act. The Trump administration has been way more open recently to revisiting adding minimum mandatories and prison reform in general. So we probably will start seeing some more improvements here in the next couple of years, but nothing is fast. Nothing is overnight, as you guys know. Did I miss anything else?
That's it.
That's it.
Any other questions?
All right. I think that's all the questions, guys. Looks like we had a decent crew in here. Medical care, food, medical care. Dan's asking about the changes to the prison system. Look, medical care is not great. You know, you don't want to go into prison with the mindset that I'm going to get all of this medical. We had a guy, he wasn't a client, somebody that called us and asked, hey, I'm thinking about getting braces before I go into prison. Somebody had told him that, yes, they will service and maintain his braces while he's in prison. Technically, yes, they probably will, but it's not going to be to the expectation that you might think. It's not going to be like going to your orthodontist here in the free world where it's going to be weekly checkups, or if something's sore, you can pop in and get a look at it. The prison system is not fast with medical. It's not something you want to have to deal with on a regular basis. If you need to go to medical and it's an emergency, then by all means go. But if it's something you can avoid doing, you're better off waiting till you get out of prison. So my advice to anybody that's thinking about getting braces prior to going into prison, don't do it. It's a horrible idea. Medical is not great. Not great at all. In food, it's prison. It's prison. You're not going out to dinner. This isn't like, you know, Outback Steakhouse or Ruth Chris. This is prison food. And at best, it's okay. You've got the ability to purchase commissary. Great. You can enhance your prison experience with making some amazing prison dishes and learning a fun little trade on how to make prison food when you get out of prison. There's nothing more fun than to come home and show your family a prison cheesecake or prison nachos or, prison quesadillas or prison fried rice. It's a novelty. It's not something you're going to eat every day when you get out of prison, but most people find it interesting and it is something neat to talk about. So it's not going to be the end of the world, but prison food's not great. Medical's not great. Like for appendicitis. Yeah, having things like serious needs in prison, serious medical needs. There are specific prisons that are medical suited to deal with this, but it's still not going to be the type of medical that you're used to. There's a lot of people that think, well, I'm going to go to a medical prison because it's going to be easier or cushier. Maybe you have a bad back, maybe you got a bum knee, and you're using that as an excuse to go to a medical facility. Everybody I've spoken to that's gone to a medical facility absolutely hated it because it's run down. There's not as much to do. Everyone's laid up. Everyone's sick. In a lot of cases, if you're at a medical prison, they won't allow you to do some of the things that you might want to do at a regular prison, like walk the track on a regular basis or join a league. They've got softball. There's so much to do in prison, and it's a mindset. Whatever you choose to do with your prison experience is going to determine the outcome and the reality for you on what prison was like. You can ask two different people that went to the same prison at the same time, and one person's going to go, I don't ever want to go back, but it was an amazing experience. And that person's me. You'll hear that from me. You'll hear other people that went to the same prison that will say, fuck that place. Nothing good came from it. I don't even ever want to talk about prison again. I hated every minute of it. It was the most miserable experience of my life. Why did we have two different experiences? Choices, mindset, expectations, what we were willing to do, allowing to feel the uncomfortableness of a situation and using that to create change and to create new habits. That's why people get out of prison and go back into prison, because they didn't allow any change to take place. So it just is what it is. Prison's not great, but if you're going, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to bitch and complain and cry about how unfair it is the whole time, or you're going to sit there and fight and file 2255s and what can I do to get out of here sooner? Within reason, yes, you want to get out of prison sooner, but have realistic expectations and do it through doing the right thing. Don't just throw Hail Mary after Hail Mary, because most Hail Marys aren't going to work, but we tend to put all this effort. The lady I spoke to while I was at the airport, I think she said she spent $7,000 on a 2255 motion with an attorney on her sister that was sentenced to, I think it was 24 months. And after we get off the phone, she really feels like she wasted her money. Even a part of her felt like she was wasting it at the time, but she felt like she had to do it. And after she's done it, she's gotten very little feedback from the attorney. It's because the attorney already knows. He just made a quick $7,000 or $5,000, whatever he charged her. These prison consultants that are charging $25,000. I just went and met with a client while I was in Vegas. I went and met with the client that hired a separate prison consultant. And he paid the prison consultant $10,000, and he's not satisfied at all. And I asked him, well, before you hire me, what was it you're not satisfied about? Because I want to make sure that you don't have unrealistic expectations. He said, well, it doesn't return my calls. My letters aren't very good. I don't feel he really worked at all on character reference letters. My personal narrative's okay. There's been no mentor group. There's been nothing what I should be doing with my time on a day-to-day basis. I have no idea what to expect for like RDAP. And when I call him, he's too busy to take my calls, and he tells me to go watch videos. That's why he was upset. And to me, that's a valid reason. And unfortunately, that's a normal thing to see when you go through something like this. So when I hear that's the reason you're not happy, then there's something we can do about that. We can do and fill the shoes of where your prison consultant did not. So if you're dealing with a prison consultant that you feel is not doing the right thing by you, and you feel like you're not getting the level of service that you need, if you want to give us a call, it doesn't cost you anything to talk to us. As long as you're willing to tell me what it is that you're not happy about, so I can make sure that you're not expecting a mountain to be moved. If you were to tell me, well, he's not guaranteeing me RDAP, and he's telling me that we're going to do these letters, but I don't really know if they're going to make a difference or not. You don't have a bad prison consultant. You have unrealistic expectations of what you want to happen. If I told everybody in this room, I guarantee probation, you would all hire me in a heartbeat. But the fact of the matter is if you're not willing to work as if it's a guarantee, and you're not willing to put in that energy as if it were a guarantee, then what you're saying is you're not willing to work because you're not 100% believing in that this can make a difference. And if you're not believing it's going to make a difference, then how am I supposed to do anything for you if you already think, is this really going to matter? Will it matter? Will it not matter? That's not the point. The point is the mindset. If you're willing to change the mindset, then yes, I promise you it will matter. I think that's all we got, unless there's been anything else. Did I do anything while I was in Las Vegas? I did. I went out. I didn't do any of the stuff that normal people go when they go to Las Vegas. I had a good time, but it wasn't anything crazy. I met a client, I met a group of attorneys, and I went out with a couple of friends from Florida. We had a great time. We went and saw Cirque du Soleil. We went and saw some shows, went out to dinner, went and enjoyed just the scenery and just the craziness of the casinos. It was just a wild experience. My first time ever going there. So yeah, that's what I did in Vegas. All right, guys. This is an hour-long video, so you guys got some bonus today. We spoke a little longer, but we spoke about a lot of information I think a lot of you need to hear. These are the things you need to focus on. If you're getting ready to go to prison, you need to know how to deal with your fear and anxiety. Make sure you can manage it, because if you can manage that, it will allow you to go on to the next step. The next step is making sure you've got legal advice, that you know what to expect from your attorney, and you know how to hold your attorney accountable by asking the right questions and kind of already knowing the general answers, but making sure your attorney is focusing on these things. And the third thing that you really need to do is what you're doing with your free time. How are you preparing? What effort are you putting into it? And who's helping you? Don't think you have it all figured out, because you don't. And when you think you got it all figured out, that's when you fall flat on your face and you wish you had done things differently. Did I miss anything, Ches?
No.
All good? All right, guys. I'm RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. As always, one day at a time. People helping people. I love every single one of you guys. I will see you. Actually, it'll be Wednesday, ladies' night with Kathy Kaplan. So make sure you tune in for Wednesday. It's 7 p.m. Eastern time. 7 p.m. Eastern time with Kathy Kaplan. She goes over women's issues on what women deal with getting ready to go to the federal prison system. So join in, watch Kathy. Don't forget to give a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, give me a thumbs up. Leave some comments in the room. Love everybody. Talk to you soon. Got to find the stop button on this because it's a different program. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.